interested in a creepy 911 call episode, and it seems like you guys were, so here it is. So sit back, relax, get comfortable, get cozy, and get ready to be spooked. Now, with that being said, and of course, as always, without any further ado, let's get into tonight's stories, shall we? Alrighty, so the first story for tonight was originally posted by a Redditor called Voltron. The story is called The Shadowpeople Guy. A call comes in the dead of night, and a middle-aged fellow is reporting a burglary in process in a lower-income part of town. He's locked himself in the bathroom and communicating in short, terrified whispers. He describes the whole event in great detail: who, what, where, how. He describes the sound of feet shuffling around the house and getting nearer to him. He hears a couple of male voices talking about which items to take and if anyone is here. He stops, answering me periodically as he hears footsteps coming closer. He describes seeing the shadows of two pairs of feet walking by the door that leads into his bedroom. He's pleading with me to hurry up and to send the police because he doesn't have anything to defend himself with and he's disabled, and what if they hurt him? He's quietly sobbing at this point as he tells me that they're right outside the bathroom door now, just standing there, and they know he's in there. I heard a small knock in the background. Police arrive at that moment and clear the scene. I tell him to come to the door. It's safe now. He does so and he disconnects the line. I heard later from the officers that when the guy opened the door, the entire house was covered wall to wall in aluminium foil and webs of fishing lines and other booby traps, so thickly spread throughout the house that it was impossible for any creature, human or otherwise, to have entered or sneaked around the residence, much less the homeowner himself. He had been sitting by the front door the entire time. First of all, you guys, can I just say that I have a tremendous amount of respect for emergency service workers. You know, the people who go out there, but also the 911 operators. These are jobs that are incredibly demanding for your mental health, and I have nothing but respect for these people. That being said, it is an incredibly creepy call to receive, I'm sure. Especially with how the Redditor describes how terrified the caller sounded. But I really hope that the man who rang 911 that night and who was convinced that there were intruders was in his home and had set up all of these booby traps. I hope that he gets the help he deserves, or that he got the help he deserves and needs, because sadly I am suspecting that there are some mental health issues involved here, and there is no shame in that. But I really hope that this caller got the help that he deserves and needs. Wow. Alrighty, moving on to the next story, which was originally posted by a Redditor called Bradrick9001. The story is called Home Invasion. We get a large number of these creepy 911 calls, that is, but there is one that always stands out. I received a call late one night for a home invasion in progress. The woman was freaking out because two men, a tall, lanky man with a wrench and a short, fat man with a hammer, had let themselves into her apartment. She had forgotten to lock the door, and they woke her up by banging on the walls in her living room. Now she went to investigate, and the men claimed to be members of the apartment staff on a call to fix her air conditioning unit. In the middle of the night, a likely story, right? She told them that she had made no such call and asked them to leave at once. The men instead dove behind her couch and armchair, where they remained silent, their bald heads occasionally peeking out from the corners of the furniture. When the 911 call came in, my caller was frantic as she described the scene, constantly interrupting herself to shriek and plead with the two men, demanding them to leave and that the police were on their way. On developments, however, my caller continued to only describe their bald heads, their rasping breath, and abnormally large black eyes tracing her around the room. Roughly 5 minutes into the call, things changed. My caller said that the men had ducked down completely behind the furniture, and she could no longer see or hear them. I advised my caller to remain where she was and to not search for the intruders, as she informed me she intended to do, and that my officers were pulling into her apartment block. I heard a knock at the door as my officers entered. Oddly enough, I began to hear a dog barking through my headset. Clearly, in cases such as home invasion, a dog present will be barking constantly, and it only began as my officers entered the home. I muted my voice and remained on the line as my officers cleared the apartment, all while the woman desperately described to the officers that the men must have sunken back down through the shadows on the floor, as they usually do when they're about to be caught. My officers concluded after a full sweep of the apartment that evening that everything was clear and that the woman had mistaken her furniture, a love seat, the short fat residents flagged, but I'll never be able to shake her descriptions of the two intruders staring at her with those black eyes. You guys, I feel like we have two possible options here. Number one is that this is another case of mental health problems, in which case I really hope that the lady who called got the help that she needed and she deserves. Option number two, especially considering the description of the intruders with the black eyes, I feel like it could potentially be explained as something paranormal, which is, as scary really, because if you think about it, this woman is living in this apartment and she is seeing these intruders. She can see them clear as day, hiding behind her furniture, carrying weapons essentially, even if it's a hammer or a wrench, those are things that could do serious harm. With black eyes and bald heads, she sees them right there, keeping an eye on her. Can you imagine how terrifying that must be? Regardless of the reason, regardless of whether it's mental health issues or whether it's something more sinister and otherworldly. In any case, I really hope that this woman got the help that she needed. Wow. Alrighty, moving on to the next story, which was originally posted by a Redditor called OB_186. Their story is called The Panic Button. Now, what we do at our job, or used to since I don't work there anymore, is we monitor the computer for any signals that our alarm system send to us. Say for instance, someone presses a panic button at their home, the signal pops up on our screen with the name of the client and all their details, the type of signal it is, and any specific instructions for that specific client. Now, in this case, it was about 10 p.m. and I was working the emergency signals that night. We got a panic signal from, let's call him Mr. B. Mr. B's specific client instructions on his profile stated that under no circumstances may we phone any other number on his profile except his, even though the number for his wife is also on his profile. Following client instructions, I phone Mr. B. He answers within one ring. I then ask him if everything is okay, since we received a panic signal. Mr. B tells me in a very calm and gentle voice, "I'm sorry, I accidentally pressed the panic button when I wanted to activate the alarm system, as I'm going to bed now." I think nothing of it, because in that line of work, 99 out of 100 times a panic is either accidental, faulty programming, or because of a power failure in old alarm systems. password before ending the call. A safe word, if you will, that they give beforehand when opening an account with us. The controller handling the signal can't know what it is beforehand to cheese the system because it gives you a list of 5 words, 4 random words, and then the real password. He answers his password correctly, and I logged the signal away as accidental activation. Now 2 minutes later I receive another banning signal from Mr. B. I handled this signal again because I had spoken with Mr. B previously, so I knew what was up. I phoned him and he immediately said, again in a very calm and casual tone, "I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my remote. Everything is still fine. The password is blank." But right after he said the password and immediately hung up on me, I had this feeling in my gut that something was up. I decided to send a response vehicle. Worst case is I could get into trouble by sending a response officer without any credible proof of any crimes happening. I explained to the officer that they just check it out, and if the client is unhappy, that the officer can just put them either through to me so I can explain myself, or if not me, to my superior in charge, why I sent the officer, and that I take the blame for it fully. The way the response explained it to me is that when they tried calling out to Mr. B from the outside, nobody was answering, so they jumped the fence. They checked around the premises, and when they got to the bedroom window, the response saw Mr. B on top of Mrs. B, trying to strangle her to death. Wow, that took a turn. They yelled and pointed a gun at Mr. B, telling him to stop, and only then did he stop strangling Mrs. B. Then he just asked over his radio while pointing the gun at Mr. B that I get the police there ASAP. Apparently Mr. B was a very possessive and selfish person, and Mrs. B had had enough of him and wanted a divorce, and she broke the news to him that night. He didn't take the news all that well, and she pressed the panic button because she knew what he was capable of. Oh, that is ominous. The first time she pressed the panic button was before he started getting physical. The second time was while he was attacking her. She was able to press the button for the second time as the button was hidden under a bedside table. Not quite sure why I had that feeling in my gut that night or why I trusted it. It felt like a burning feeling, like a fireball in your stomach. But I'm glad I trusted it because I saved a lady's life that night. Wow. I am absolutely flabbergasted by this story. The way that this first story is called The Werewolf. I had a woman call in because she was hiding in her second floor bathroom from a werewolf that was right outside her door. Obviously, I dispatched a unit for a mental health check, but had to stay on the phone with her while she screamed and cried in absolute terror until the guys got there. It took over 20 minutes for them to arrive, and then she wouldn't leave the bathroom to open the door for them, so they had to climb on the roof to break into a second-story window to get to her. Oh my goodness. The whole time I was on the phone with her, she was absolutely terrified. At one point, about 10 minutes into the call, I gained her trust and managed to calm her down. I told her to put her phone down and open the bathroom door, promising that there was no werewolf there. I listened as she placed the phone down, shuffled over to the door, and then slowly opened it. The scream she let out is one of the most horrible I have ever heard. She came back to the phone screaming at me that I had lied to her and that the werewolf was still right outside her door. Eventually the guys got in and were able to take her to the hospital, but it was definitely the creepiest call I ever received. Hearing a grown woman freak out about a werewolf was unsettling. After I hung up, I joked with some of the other dispatchers that maybe there really was a werewolf and we should check on the guys. I mean, this is a possible case, once again, of mental health problems, right? It is likely, even, but I feel so incredibly sorry for both the woman who called and for the Redditor, really. Because can you imagine being in such terror? Because you've got to remember, this woman who's calling truly believes that there is a werewolf outside her door. Can you imagine how terrified you must be? Then obviously it was made clear just how terrified she was by the blood-curdling screams, and the Redditor sat there and had to listen to that over the phone, which obviously is incredibly unsettling to hear. If you have any sort of empathy, you can feel the terror in that woman's voice, in that woman's screams. I mean, this is why I say that this is an incredibly, mentally demanding job. It is incredibly, incredibly demanding for your mental health. Wow. Once again, if this wasn't a real werewolf and it was in fact a case of mental health problems, I really hope this woman, she was taken to hospital, so that's good news, but I really, really hope this woman got the help and the therapy and everything she needed to get better. Wow. I mean, I cannot imagine the absolute terror that some of these callers must have been going through, and how difficult it must have been for these 911 operators to be on that call and to hear just the sheer distress these callers were in, and you can't really do anything. You're not there. You can say so much for choosing to hang out with me again tonight, and I will see you for next week's video. For now though, all there is left for me to do is to